Boing. Holy crap.
Hey guys, following last week's video on the Turians as a species, our video this week is going to focus on the most famous and well-liked Turian from the Mass Effect series, Garrus Vakarian. Yes, Vitra is cool, but she doesn't have nearly the insane following that Garrus has, which is probably more Andromeda's fault than Vetra's fault, since she was the best character in the Mass Effect Andromeda game, but moving on. We're going to go over his story, and we should note here that since the Mass Effect games are RPGs, there's a fair amount of leeway in exactly how that story could have played out, meaning that if you've played the games, this information may not exactly line up with what you did, and unfortunately, unlike KOTOR's Revan, see our previous video here, he doesn't have a canon story. So we'll try to highlight the more important differences in what could have been, depending upon choices made by the player, but he was a squad member for the entire original Mass Effect trilogy, so we're not going to be able to cover everything that could possibly have happened with him in this video.
Okay, so the first thing of interest to know about Garrus is that, and this may surprise a number of people, as the revelation certainly surprised us, Garrus is technically an optional character in both Mass Effect 1 and 3. We've never heard of anyone doing this, but in Mass Effect 1, if you play your cards right, and by right we mean wrong, it is possible to deny Garrus' request to join the crew and thus the team, which removes him from the rest of the game. Which is insane considering the fact that Garrus is the internet's favorite character from the entire Mass Effect franchise. He's especially popular with the ladies. Less shockingly, for anyone who's played the Mass Effect series, is that it's possible for Garrus to not appear in Mass Effect 3, since in Mass Effect 2, it's possible for literally the entire crew of the Normandy, Shepard, the main character included, to die. Therefore, any imported save data from Mass Effect 2, where Garrus died at the end, keeps him dead in Mass Effect 3, which is just nuts for reasons that will become clear as this video goes on.
Garrus Vakarian was raised, and presumably born, on Palaven, primary homeworld of the Turian people. His mother was the only parent on planet for at least part of his life, and raised both Garrus and his sister. Garrus' father, Castus, spent the majority of his known life as a CSEC officer. CSEC was the police force for the Citadel, a giant space station that served as the home for the Citadel Council, and thus the de facto capital of most of known space. Among the many lessons Garrus was presumably taught by his father, either before he worked for CSEC or during leave taken back on Palaven, the two most important, or at least most often quoted, were, first, that if you give up when things get hard, you'll never accomplish anything, and second, if you're going to do something, you do it right. Though they would later disagree on what exactly that second piece of advice really meant. When he was young, sometime during his schooling, Garrus acquired a study abroad scholarship that was to take place during the summer. But upon finding that his mother had been caught in a hit and run, he ditched the scholarship, a one-time chance sort of thing, and stayed home to take care of his mother. When exactly this event occurred is unknown. It's only known that Garrus was still living on the homeworld at the time, and all indications point to him leaving for the Citadel shortly after his schooling was over, so presumably it was somewhere after the age of 15, as, at the age of 15, Garrus, as with most Turians, joined the military academy. He excelled there, even going so far as to be placed into an advanced selection class from which future Turian Spectres would be selected. More on Spectres in a minute. However, due to a Spectre's ability to essentially ignore the laws of Citadel space, Garrus' father, a very by-the-books lawman, had Garrus blocked from the program, as his father was never one who approved of law-breaking for any reason, which prevented the possibility of Spectre life for the young Garrus, though indications are he was never particularly bothered by the fact. Once his academy stint was finished, Garrus joined his father on the Citadel and became a CSEC investigations officer, essentially a police detective, which is how the player first encounters Garrus in-game.
Okay, so before going forward, we need to give some quick background information for the 3 people watching this video who have never played any of the Mass Effect games and or are unfamiliar with its basic plotline structure. In Mass Effect, you play as a character named Commander Shepard. You choose your gender, but whether male or female, Shepard is a human military commander who becomes a Spectre, which is an agent endowed by the Citadel Council, the major governing body for most of the Milky Way galaxy, with the power and authority to do pretty much whatever he or she wants, as long as it's in the pursuit of the goals of the Council or to handle specific missions handed down by said Council. In this specific case, Shepard spends the entire Mass Effect series trying to save the galaxy from the threat of the Reapers, a race of ancient alien machines hundreds and thousands of millennia old. that is bent on wiping out nearly all sentient life in the Milky Way. This begins, in Mass Effect 1, with Shepard investigating the suspicious activities of another Spectre, a Turian named Saren, who would eventually be revealed to be working with the Reapers for reasons that belong in another video. Most importantly for our purposes, this is where Garrus comes in.
When Shepard levels accusations against Saren, the Council orders C-Sec to look into the charges against one of their favorite Spectres. Saren was the Council's golden boy at the time. As a gifted investigations officer, Garrus was put in charge of the investigation. However, because Saren was a Spectre, a Black Ops agent working for the highest branches of the government, the vast majority of information on him, mission reports, dossiers, whereabouts, etc., were inaccessible at Garrus' clearance level, which is an odd piece of bureaucracy to be sure. Additionally, almost every piece of information he actually could get his hands on would end up disappearing or being blocked thanks to some combination of Saren's influence, clout, contacts, favors, and so on. So the end result was that when the deadline for the investigation came, another odd thing to have, you'd think the investigation would just go till everything was done, but hey, that's coming from someone who knew Saren was guilty already, so maybe our opinions are biased. Garrus had turned up nothing. He did have one more lead to follow up on and asked his superiors for more time, but they effectively stopped listening at hadn't found anything and ignored the yet. This was understandably upsetting for Garrus, who was already chafing under the mountains of red tape that both real and fictional police officers have to deal with. As a genuinely decent man who wanted to help people, right wrongs, fight the good fight, and see hope and happiness given back to those from whom it had been taken, Garrus had found it increasingly difficult to deal with seeing criminals walk on technicalities over the years. And if Saren, one of his own people, someone who was supposed to be the very best the Turians had to offer the galaxy, was guilty of the crimes of which he'd been accused, Garrus wasn't about to let him get away with it because of a deadline and the power of Saren's position. Despite the official case being closed, Garrus followed up on his only remaining lead, and if you're about 49% of Mass Effect players, he meets Shepard at a little clinic and helps him take out some gangsters, making their first meeting a decent one. If you're the other 49% of players, you pick up a different companion first, never go to the clinic, and Garrus tracks Shepard down a little later, offers up his information and meets you that way. If you're that insane 2%, let's be honest, it's probably more like half of 1%, you took the second option, and when Garrus asks to join up with you, you deny him, ending his story. For the rest of us, though, during those first conversation moments, you get a little peek into Garrus' frustration with protocol getting in the way of doing the right thing, and he asks to be allowed to help you finish his investigation and hunt Saren with you. When you say yes, like a sane person, he then joins Shepard on the Normandy, your ship and base hub in the game, and in pursuit of Saren. Over the course of the game, it is revealed through interactions on and off the ship that Garrus is that perfect protagonist, film noir, vigilante kind of character. The one who wants to do good things for the right reasons and help people and isn't afraid to get his hands dirty to get the job done. He's the kind of guy that makes you think, if every cop or person in power were like him, all that red tape might not be necessary. But alas, it is necessary, because whether human or alien, man is flawed. Men are more flawed, and as you'll see as this video progresses, even Garrus is not immune to a little jading and corruption.
After joining the crew of the Normandy, Garrus follows Shepard and helps uncover Saren's plans, where it is revealed that Saren is helping Sovereign, a Reaper designated to wait in the Milky Way to send a signal to his brethren hiding out in deep space when it is time to reap their harvest, nearly all sentient life, for reasons that aren't fully explained in the first game and don't really matter for our purposes. Saren originally planned to help Sovereign in an attempt to mitigate the damage to the galaxy as much as possible, seeing in Sovereign and its people a force too strong to be overcome. Basically, Saren's original goals were pure, albeit coldly calculated. If an unbeatable foe is going to descend upon the galaxy and destroy almost everything, the best option is to try and increase the size of the survivor pool. So, Saren betrayed everything he knew and stood for in an effort to do what he thought was right. It's that classic tale of the misguided good guy doing the wrong thing for what he thought was the right reason. Unfortunately for Saren, one of the many things he and the rest of the galaxy didn't know about the Reapers was that extended exposure to the Reapers allows them to control the minds of those around them. Thus, as time went on, Saren's originally pure goals, while still the reasoning in his now entrapped mind, became secondary to Sovereign's goals of galactic destruction, and he became the menace those in the know believed him to be. Standing alongside Shepard, Garrus helped take both Saren and Sovereign down, the final confrontation taking place on board the Citadel and in a great space battle around it simultaneously. The battle was huge and in the capital of known space. Shepard and his crew had spent the vast majority of the game preceding with almost no one believing them or in their cause. After the Battle of the Citadel, Garrus, along with others, thought that there was no way that anyone could ignore the looming Reaper threat. After all, it had come knocking on the galaxy's doorstep. They were proven wrong. Though the confrontation itself was impossible to hide, the looming threat of the Reapers was swept under the rug. Most of the galaxy was content to believe that Sovereign was a one-off, that there was no ancient alien force bent on annihilation of the galaxy. It was at that point that Garrus first began to become a little jaded to the ways of the world, to lose a bit of his bright, eager naivete and shine. Shepard's team was mostly disbanded after the events of Mass Effect 1, with the crew going on their separate ways. Shepard would continue to look for more proof, but was encouraged by his superiors to let his/her friends go on with their own lives. In Garrus's case, the exact nature of that life depended in no small part upon the interactions you have with him in-game. After the Battle of the Citadel, he would go on to do one of a range of things, from rejoining C-Sec to applying to become a Spectre himself. Comics don't really specifically spell it out, but the inference seems to be that, canonically, he tried to rejoin C-Sec. Either way, though, that return to normal plan didn't really have time to stick.
At the beginning of Mass Effect 2, not long after the events of Mass Effect 1, Shepard's ship gets torn apart by a race of beings known as the Collectors. Shepard all but dies in the aftermath, and spends the next 2 years of his or her life on a sci-fi operating table belonging to a secret and highly shady organization called Cerberus being put back together. Everyone, including Garrus, believed that Shepard died during the destruction of the Normandy. During Shepard's 2-year hiatus, Garrus came to grips with the fact that established laws and law enforcement simply aren't a good fit for him. He wanted to be able to see a wrong and right it, not do his best within the confines of the law and live with that being good enough. Combine that realization with a confrontation with his father, wherein Garrus was told that if things continue as they are, Castus would be forced to arrest Garrus himself, and he would do so if necessary, and Garrus' growing frustration with the Council and the galactic community's inability or unwillingness to see the threat of the Reapers looming in the shadows, and Garrus decided he'd do, well, like Shepard, and go out into the world and try to right things his own way, and as best and as quickly as he could. His journey took him to Omega, a trade capital and space station located in the Terminus systems, a region of space that did not bow to Council law. Subsequently, it is a very lawless place, much more Old West style than the modern bureaucracy of Citadel space. Here, Garrus put together a team of like-minded individuals and implemented a plan: clean up Omega and leave civilians unharmed. Archangel, as the group would come to be called, attacked the various scum of Omega's underbelly, including the 3 major gang/mercenary groups that worked there, and tore into them mercilessly. They did everything from straight fights to dirty ambushes. They had only one rule: no innocent casualties. Here, Garrus had finally found his calling, but he'd been jaded by his past experiences and still wanted to see the world in black and white. He pushed his team too far and too hard, and eventually, they broke. Their exploits were so successful and so crippling that eventually, those 3 major merc groups joined forces. Something nearly unheard of. They hated each other, in an effort to take out Archangel. They failed, time and again, until they got their claws into Garrus' first recruit and best friend in Archangel, another Turian named Sidonus, who agreed to give the rest of Archangel up in exchange for his own life. Garrus was lured away from Archangel's hideout, and the rest of his team was completely wiped out. Garrus, last man standing, still gave the combined merc group so much trouble that they put out a call for freelancers to aid them in their quest to kill the lone Turian, who'd taken up a nearly unassailable sniping position. Did we mention he's an awesome shot? And was steadily picking off everyone and anyone who came his way. Garrus even managed to take out the merc's air support, but he also knew this was the end. The merc groups were huge, terminus-spanning groups to begin with, and with the call for more mercenaries, the fact was that even if he performed to Super Turian levels, he'd eventually run out of resources and options. Seeing the end, he took this time to make a final goodbye call to his estranged father. Never stopping his assault, he apologized to his dear old dad, and confessed that only now did he really understand the lessons he had tried so hard not to let Castus teach him. Castus's primary response, realizing his son's situation, was to tell him to finish the job and come home so they could speak properly. Garrus was originally going to deny that as a possibility. He could kill 100 of his foes, but they had 200 and 300 more waiting in the wings. But, ironically, it would be this very fact that saved him.
Back in action by this point, Shepard had been sent to track down Archangel. Shepard needed good, capable people to take on the Collectors, who would later be found to almost literally be the hands of the Reapers. And though no one knew Garrus was both the leader and last remaining Archangel, the team's reputation preceded them. Shepard arrived during Garrus's last stand and, posing as a freelance mercenary, helped Garrus survive the ordeal, turn the tide in the Turians' favor, and escape alive. Though not unscathed, the air support Garrus had previously disabled had repairs done in time to play a part in the final confrontation, and Garrus ended up taking a space rocket to the face. And we all know that wounds received in cutscenes are 100% more deadly than those received during gameplay. Shepard was able to get Garrus back to the Normandy SR2 in time to save his life, but he was left with some serious wounds, and if you never change his base appearance, thoroughly wrecked looking armor. Garrus seemed to be happy to be alive though, and notes that chicks dig scars when asked about them. At this point, the tables are turned from Mass Effect 1, with Shepard asking Garrus to join him or her to stop the Collectors instead of being asked. He signs on immediately, not just because Shepard just saved his life, but because Garrus trusts and respects Shepard completely. Despite knowing how incredibly shady and anti-alien Cerberus, Shepard's new bosses, are, Garrus knows that if Shepard's the one pointing the ship, then it's the right place to be to do good. Garrus is one of only 2 of Shepard's original squad mates to rejoin him or her for Mass Effect 2, the other being Tali, probably one of the reasons the internet loves him so much. This is an especially significant thing to note when you consider that none of the crew members Shepard could have romanced in the first game will rejoin you in Mass Effect 2, and only one of the 3 options isn't a complete dick about it. On the subject of romance, in Mass Effect 2 and continuing in Mass Effect 3, Garrus becomes a romanceable character for Fem Shepard, with the 2 of them sharing a tender and adorable romance throughout the 2 games, if you so desire. Alternatively, if you play Man Shepard, the 2 become the best of bros, with Garrus taking an unspoken but also irrefutable place as Shepard's right-hand man and second-in-command. This is still the case with romancing Fem Shepard, but boyfriend trumps best and most trusted friend for descriptions. As a side note, if Garrus isn't romanced by Shepard, he ends up striking up a romance with Tali, Shepard's only other steadfast ally, so long as Shepard isn't trying to get into her envirosuit himself.
Moving back to plot, once Garrus and Shepard team back up in Mass Effect 2, the hunt is on for the Collectors, who have been abducting entire human colonies, and it is revealed as the game progresses, are a literal puppet race controlled by the Reapers. Garrus tags along for the whole raid, helping Shepard throughout the ordeal, including, if you're smart, playing a pivotal leadership role in the final assault on the Collector's base. Most importantly for Garrus individually, though, during this time back together, whatever Shepard's relationship with Garrus, you, the player, have the option to help peel back the layers of jade and cynicism that had grown over Garrus's once bright-eyed view of the world, or push him to darker, more extreme places.
Assuming Garrus lives through the final mission, which we're going to do, otherwise this video ends now. Remember, everyone can die at the end of Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 3 seems to take the assumption that you, the player, helped bring Garrus back to a better place, not turn him into a Batman villain. By the time that Mass Effect 3 begins, the Reapers have finally arrived in the Milky Way and are wreaking havoc on a galactic scale. Shepard's ship ends up becoming a mobile command center for the entire galaxy's resistance against the Reaper invasion. No pressure, players. And Garrus gets an uncomfortable promotion. In the time between Mass Effects 2 and 3, Garrus has told his father everything about the Reapers. As it turns out, Garrus's father was good friends with the head of the Turian High Command, and believing Garrus's tale, tried to convince the Primarchs of the looming Reaper threat. They weren't really taken seriously, but after a great deal of finagling, Garrus was eventually given a paltry team and resources in order to help make preparations for the Reaper's invasion. It wasn't much, but Garrus made do. Once the game is underway, Garrus is found acting as a military advisor for the Turians' defense force, fighting the very real Reapers, as he is the only living Turian with meaningful prior experience with the Reapers. For a final time, Garrus joins Shepard, and from the mobile command base of the Normandy, not only acts once again as one of Shepard's squad mates, but as the man in charge of coordinating the entirety of the Turian military resistance, with his people's leaders asking his opinions on battle strategy. Considering his past experience with the Reapers, leadership experience in battle by this point, and his position in the middle of all of the best information that the combined peoples of the Milky Way have to offer each other. There are ups and downs, triumphs, failures, and personal moments between any version of Shepard and Garrus throughout the game. If you did personal missions with Garrus in this game and you didn't get this scene,
I'm Garrus Vakarian, and this is now my favorite spot on the Citadel. Think I'm going to erect a monument right here. Bronze this gun so the whole galaxy knows.
you're a monster, and you know what you did. And ultimately, with Garrus standing at your side, you as Shepard defeat the Reapers, and whether you destroy them, controlled them, or merged with them, and no matter what you think of how things ended, everyone can agree that Garrus stood tall the whole way through, and stuck with Shepard all the way to the end.
And that's pretty much Garrus. Arguably Shepard's best friend and closest confidant, not counting other romance options. A genuinely decent person who mostly stays that way throughout the games, and the most boss alien ever to rock broken armor. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like, and let us know in the comments down below what you'd like to see us do videos on in the future. If you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, be they lore or let's play, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
And in the meantime, guys, this has been
Two Men and a Mic,
signing off. Hey guys, you can click the link in the left for our last lore video.
You can click the link on the right for our last Let's Play.
And right here in the middle, that orb, you can hit that to subscribe.
Also, ring the bell if you want to be notified when we post a new video.
This is Two Men and a Mic. Thanks for watching.